Alright, so I thought I'd start with Collective Soul, a greatest hits called 7-Year Itch, greatest hits 1994 to 2001. Starting with this one because it's the first greatest hits that I ever bought. I had been buying CDs since 1999, and I had quite a good little collection considering how young I was at the time. This one came out in 2001, so I had just recently become a Collective Soul fan because of the album Blender, ironically, which is an album that a lot of people didn't really like. It was the band's fifth album. A lot of people didn't like that they were kind of getting away from their rock influences, which is kind of weird to me. And not to go on a tangent already, but I will. Dosage was kind of the same deal. Like, it was sonically a new Collective Soul. You know, they'd done the rock retro thing, post-grunge thing for 3 albums, and then Dosage came out, and they kind of, you know, it was the same band, definitely, but they kind of put a more electronic edge on it, and there was kind of this more, I don't know, like metallic sheen, and it wasn't a detriment to the record at all. Like, I really liked the 3 prior, but I think I like Dosage just as much, or almost as much. Probably more than the self-titled one. So when Blender came out, Y Part 2 was the gateway drug. That one was the one that made me a fan. And yeah, so I bought Blender right away, and thankfully I wasn't hearing all the critics and the cynics. I just enjoyed the album a ton, and yeah, it really only produced that one hit, Y Part 2. I remember Vent getting a little bit of radio play. For some reason, I mean, I think it was one of their best compositions, but it kind of got ignored, and I don't know if that's because the word prick was in it, like they were going against their clean sound or whatever. Imagine saying that word. And then Perfect Day was the 3rd single, which featured Elton John, and for that reason alone, it should have been a bigger hit. I think it did well on adult contemporary radio. I think because the band was still young and known as like modern rock, mainstream rock darlings. And then they were teaming up with Elton, who was more known for the older set at the time. You know, this is before his resurgence. I mean, he resurfaced with Lion King and that, but before his recent resurgence and, you know, Rocket Man and that. You know, the young people weren't really hearing Elton at the time, and but it was a cool collaboration. Anyway, so we'll fast forward to 2001, and you know, it wasn't that long after Blender, and I was listening to the radio, and they said, "This is the new one from Collective Soul," and I thought, oh, are they putting out a 4th single from Blender? Like, what is it gonna be? And Next Homecoming started up. And I was like, wow, you know, awesome, man, new Collective Soul. I didn't even have the internet in 2001 yet. I had to use it at school, and I thought, oh, I gotta rush out and buy this record, you know. The first single's out from it, sweet. There's gonna be a new Collective Soul record, and I figured probably in a month or so. And then I guess I did the research or whatever, and it's a greatest hits. Okay, well, I didn't actually have the older records yet because I didn't have the funds to you know, get into a band and keep backtracking. I knew Collective Soul's older stuff. Like Blender was the only one I owned, but I knew a lot of their older hits, of course, because they get played to death on the radio. Shine was played a lot. December. All those classics. Heavy. I loved Heavy. So I wasn't really disappointed that a Greatest Hits was coming out already. So, because it gave me a chance to, catch up, I guess. So anyway, so fast forward about a month or so later, so I'm picking this thing up, and right off the bat, I was surprised right away. Like, it's very simple, bold design. It is what it is. Gets the job done, that's for sure. Right away, I was surprised looking at older pictures of the group, because it was like they were a completely different band. I was looking, they really were a grunge band, even though they kind of had this clean sound to them, clean kind of poppier sound than a lot of the grunge groups, and they were a little later, they missed the true grunge scene. But yeah, looking at that, they looked so much older, they looked like a 70s group, and I already showed this, but did I show the one, where is it? Yeah, the Ed Roland there, like he looks like, I don't know, he looks like Jimmy Page or Iggy Pop with his shirt off. It was a whole different scene to what I was, I just knew them from the Y Part 2 music video, and I think they performed on Jay Leno. They performed Vent, and it's an amazing performance, actually. Really tight musicianship. But I just knew that version of the band. They were kind of scrubby clean. I guess they probably had hired a stylist by then, shortly after Woodstock 99, because you can tell they didn't have a stylist then. They were kind of dressing like how I would dress, like, especially Will, like, it just was not good. I used to dress like that 10 years ago. And there's some more pics. And you get the lyrics. That's a lost art. You don't get the lyrics with these discs anymore. And that was appreciated at the time. I could learn the lyrics. I'm not really sure if this is in chronological order or if it's just scattershot. But, I don't know. I appreciate a Greatest Hits where they actually put some effort in. It's nice to have all the pics of the group. Because, like I said, other than that one music video and one live performance, Collective Soul were kind of like this faceless group to me. Like, I knew what they looked like because of the Blender album. And this is, oops. This is, what they looked at it like at the time. Ed with the short hair, that was a very short phase. They actually were subject to some criticism when Blender came out, because, not just because of the album's sound, unfortunately, but because of the portrayal of the group on the cover and the little avatars. Because a lot of fans felt like they were trying to market themselves, or the record company was trying to market them as a boy band, which at the time meant those boy groups, fabricated boy groups, the Pearlman stuff, like, NSYNC and stuff like that, and there was O-Town and Backstreet Boys, who are still going at the date of this video, Soul Decision, stuff like that, and 98 Degrees. It's not all bad, but, I guess I don't actually hate the cover, but I guess I can see where people are coming from. Like, if you put it next to a Soul Decision album or something, someone might think it's the same group. So, yeah, there might have been some deception going on there. There might have been the record company was looking at the sales to, the latest NSYNC and the latest Backstreet Boys and saying, can we capitalize on this? Collective Soul, can we make them look younger? And they did. I don't know if it worked, though, because the album didn't sell as well as any of the four leading up to it. I think it might have been their last album that was certified anything other than this greatest hits here, which did really well. I think it went gold, and I think that was it for, that was the end of their commercial era, and the end of their, not the end of their creative era, because, you know, they did do some good stuff later on, but it was the end of that core, you know, the five guys who really brought them through their commercial era. Um, yeah, which is too bad. You know, Shane was fired shortly after, a little while after, but before Youth came out, which was the next record. And Ross Childress was also fired for sleeping with Ed Roland's wife or having an affair, um, which is really crummy. Because he was, I like Jesse Triplett and I like the other guy, but you know, I gotta say Ross was the best guitarist for them. And I hear that, you know, Ed is instrumental, no pun intended, but he is instrumental in writing all the guitar parts, or at least a vast majority, but I read that it was all the guitar parts. But there was something about Ross where he was the best at playing them. And the band was the tightest with Shane and Ross in the group. I think that the lineup nowadays is probably the second best lineup, but sometimes it was a little rough in the mid to late 2000s. I still liked the band, but they were a little harder to love during the next two albums after this. So, now that I've gone on many wild tangents, the proceedings start off with Heavy, which is like the best opener you could have. I think the band started some performances with this song. Whenever I've seen them 3 or 4 times, but they always open with a new song that isn't out yet commercially or isn't recorded yet. Kind of like a test song almost, and then they play Heavy usually. Or they'll start with, one time I saw them, and it was my favorite time seeing them. They started with Burn, which was a bonus track that a lot of people didn't know. It was a bonus track off their CD-DVD set, and I'm just scouring the shelves for the name right now. Home, and which was an orchestrated live thing, disc, and for some reason there was this bonus track called Burn that was tacked onto it, which was probably a leftover from the either the Blender era or the Youth era, but yeah, they started the concert with that, and I was like, yeah, Burn, like, this is a great one, and, you know, no one else really was grooving that much or moving that much. What's this song? Yeah, so that was my favorite time seeing them, and they opened with Burn. The next time I saw them, they opened with, what was it? I think it was something off, it was 2 songs off Blood, and that hadn't come out yet. And I think the first time I saw them, they opened with something from See What You Started by Continuing, and that wasn't out, and didn't come out for another 6 months or something. So, that's my long-winded way of saying that this is the best opening song, and I appreciate that they play a new song first, just to get, I don't know if it's to get people into it, because a lot of people don't really move to songs they don't know, I've noticed. Whereas I can kind of still get into the groove and be like, okay, you know, what are you guys laying down or whatever. But a lot of concert goers, they want to hear just the hits, just the songs they can sing along to. You know, a lot of my friends are like that. They don't like when bands bring out new stuff, and I'm not like that at all. I like a nice mix, and I love when, you know, new material is tested out on audiences, so years later you can say, like, you know, I saw that before, you know, most people even heard that song, like, they tested that out on us, right? But yeah, Heavy is, it's the best. If you're not going to open with Shine, open with Heavy, a set like this, because I always thought it should have been the opener on Dosage, and for years I actually would always forget till I press play that it wasn't the opener. Tremble for My Beloved is, and that's a great song and everything, but I always thought they should be switched around, because Heavy is just this burst of energy. It doesn't have a very long runtime. It's just under 3 minutes, but that opening, the riff, like that just gets you pumped. And there's a reason why that song prevailed when it came out. Like, I think it set the record at the time for most weeks at #1 on one of the rock charts. It was the mainstream rock charts or the modern rock charts. I can't remember because there wasn't a big difference at the time. Now now that it's alternative songs and not modern rock, there's a more distinguishable difference. But at the time, there was a lot of similarities. Like if Green Day would top the charts one time, they'd top the other charts, or Foo Fighters. But yeah, anyway, Heavy was on, I can't remember how many weeks, but it was like, it might have been 11 weeks or something, and that was a pretty big deal at the time. Foo Fighters, I think, were the ones to break the record. I think Foo Fighters, they had a song that went on for like 21 weeks or something. It might have been The Pretender, and Something from Nothing, I think, did it as well, or Rope. And Green Day, I think they had a 14-week stint or something like that. Or maybe it was Three Doors Down. Their song, not Kryptonite, but Loser, which is one of my favorite songs by that band. That one topped for, I think it was 21 weeks again. That's like the magic number right now. 21, and so that was a pretty big deal at the time. But yeah, anyway, Heavy made some history there for a little bit. It's such a simple song. It's got like these really fast verses, and Ed only gets 2 lines out, and then they go into the All Your Weight Falls Down on Me part. It brings me down, and that part gets repeated as kind of like a mantra or whatever. And I love the evolution of the track. It's got such a nice drive to it, and I love how this is really simple, and it's mixed quite low, so it's not something you always hear. And I never used to hear it on the radio, but when I got some better sound systems and that, or you listen on headphones, you notice a bit more. But the backing vocals on the track, which are supplied by Will Turpin live, I'm not sure. I believe most of the studio stuff by Collective Soul, it's just Ed backing Ed, like, because he pretty much did everything. But it's definitely Will singing live. And yeah, the backing vocals, which just mirror what Ed is singing up front, they're just like beautiful. It's such a rockin' song and everything, but there's these beautiful backing vocals which are so smooth. And I always turn it up like midway through to hear that, because it's just one of those little touches, and it adds so much, in my opinion. And they were performing that song so tightly. There's a performance from some kind of talk show or something from about 99 or so, and it's one of the best Collective Soul performances ever. And the Woodstock one's really good too. I would check that out. Woodstock 99. They did a great performance of that. Pretty safe set list, but really well done. And a couple nice little covers in there. U2, I Will Follow, and Crazy Train, which the band did a really good job on. And I was expecting the audience to boo, because, you know, these kind of soft rockers from Atlanta are doing Crazy Train, but Collective Soul know when to rock, or they know how to rock when they choose to rock, is what I should say. So Heavy is one of the best opening songs ever. I think I've talked about it for 8 minutes. And then it gets followed up by She Said, which was also on Dosage, but it was a kind of a bonus hidden track. Crown is the official closing song on the record. Beautiful, beautiful song. And then if you wait through the silence, there's like a minute or two, or maybe just 30 seconds of silence, and then She Said just comes out of nowhere like this bright morning, and it's a beautiful, beautiful little pop song. Well, it's not little, it's like 5 minutes long. Um, I wouldn't say it was one of their biggest hits or anything, but it was on some soundtracks at the time. I could be wrong, but I think it was on like the Scream or Scream 2 soundtrack, as weird as that is to say. Um, but yeah, it's a great song from the same period as Heavy, but just a completely different look at the band, I guess. Um, oftentimes when they perform this song live, it's just Ed and a guitar now. It's an acoustic version, but I really like this more full version with the orchestrations and the drum track. Um, and that chorus, like the chorus melody, is amazing. It's kind of that whole, kind of prophetic, pseudo-religious stuff that Ed spouts out a lot, which always gets the band mislabeled as a religious group because of Ed. Ed is religious, and his lyrics are quite spiritual, but they're not really a religious band, or I probably wouldn't have sussed them out in the first place. No offense. But yeah, life's river shall rise, she said. Yeah, the lyrics are really nice on this one. And then we're on to the monster hit, Shine, which was the band's breakthrough song from Hints, Allegations, and Things Left Unsaid, which was their breakout album. By accident, it was supposed to be just a demo, and it wasn't really Collective Soul. It was just Ed. He played everything, he sang everything, and I think he was like producer or something. He had a big hand in it, at least. And yeah, so it got sent out to radio, and it did really well, and they didn't have an album ready, so they rushed out the demos, which is why Hints has a different production style. Definitely, it's not quite as clean as the follow-up, or as commercial sounding, and that's probably why none of the other songs were hits, even though there's some really good tracks on it. Also, that the second record was rushed out pretty soon after. Anyway, Shine was definitely an overplayed song, but that doesn't matter these days because it's such a great song, and it has really stood the test of time. If something gets overplayed, you just leave it for 6 months, and then you can tell if it was a great track or not. If you still liked it 6 months later, in my experience, this is how I work at least, then it was a great song. Oftentimes things would get overplayed, and then if I left them alone for a long time and then came back to it, it's like, oh yeah, this was really great. And Shine's like that. Like, it still sounds fresh to me now. It's got that great riff, and it's kind of a slow song, but it really gets going at one point, and the solo is amazing. The words it's a simply written song, but it's kind of effective in its simpleness, and it has the refrain, "Oh heaven, let your light shine down," and then, of course, it's not on the track, but at the end of every riff, people go, "Yeah," when you see it live. Cattail. Cameo. That's Fleetwood the cat. He is very friendly. Then, so as you can tell, this definitely isn't chronological, or it would start with Shine and then go with something from the eponymous record. But yeah, it starts with 2 songs from '98, and then reverts back to 1993 with Shine. The next song, track 4, is Energy, and this is unmistakably from the Blender sessions. And it's a song that it doesn't really get its dues. I don't know if they ever played it live. I think it might have been played a few times throughout history, only a few times. But it's a really great song. It's got like all the signature makings of a classic Collective Soul rocker. yeah, it starts with mother and child. I'm such a man for a short while. And it's got all these crazy kind of little samples in it, and like a voice that a voice of a chick that goes, "Come on, come on," and all these little DJ scratches and stuff from out of nowhere. It's so random. The first time you listen to it, but it makes sense, and for that era, it definitely makes sense. Um, I actually think it's one of the band's greatest songs. Like it really gets you going. It would be a good song to play at the gym or something like that. Um, just making sure my cat behaves. He likes to eat and scratch LPs, which drives me crazy. He's like the cutest little guy, though, so I can't lock him out of the room. Uh, he just wants to be in the video. No, he doesn't. He just wants a head scratch. Um, so I guess the lyrics are kind of about, you know, not putting too much energy in, you know, like a soul-sucking relationship. He's probably dating this, like, good-looking woman, and she's sapping all his energy, and I don't know, that's probably what it's about. Now you're messing up the computer. Yeah, it's a great song. It wasn't a single. You know, everyone puts a bonus track on their greatest hits record. This one was one of two, so it was the one that wasn't the single. So I always notice on Spotify and that it hasn't got that many plays compared to a lot of Collective Soul stuff, which is a shame again because I really like this one, and I know that if the band ever did another greatest hits, they couldn't call it 14-year itch. They missed that one. 21-year itch. But if they ever do another one, this one won't make the cut. Lock your doors when you make these videos. If you have a pet. The next one is Run, which is another song from 1998. Oh my god. And this is another one of the band's biggest hits. It seems like these days it's kind of this song, The World I Know, December, and Shine are kind of the ones people know the most, and audiences definitely gravitate towards the most. Unfortunately, when they do this song live nowadays, Ed kind of just speaks the chorus, Have I Got a Long Way to Run, instead of, you know, really harmonize or sing it, I guess, in that kind of higher voice. Which is weird, because I know he can still go there. His voice really hasn't changed that much. He still has a really good voice. But, yeah, this is the one song live that I never feel the energy as much on. But all that changes when the band gets the audience to sing Have I Got a Long Way to Run, and then it's like this big, joyous, like, sing-along or whatever. So it's really good then. But I kind of wish, you know, he'd sing it like he used to. And he used to draw out that "yeah, I run" part, which I won't. I don't have a high voice. I can't do that. It's like, "yeah, I run." Yeah, I can't do that. But now he just goes, "yeah, I run and run and run." Like, he just kind of speaks the lyrics. Gel is the next song, which is kind of a very 70s sounding kind of glam rocker. And, oh, you're distracting me. The message still rings true today. In fact, I think it's even more true than it used to be. And this is a good song. It's a really catchy tune. It's very, like I said, 70s inspired, it sounds to me. It's very glam. It's very Collective Soul, showing some of their influences. Like, it doesn't sound like a 90s song at all. and it was a huge hit for them. It sounds very different than a lot of what the group was doing and would go on to do, so it's kind of unique for that phase. It has the distinction of being um, the first track that all five guys in Collective Soul recorded together. So it was the first band song by the whole group, because everything off Hints was Ed, and then a band was formed around that so he could tour. And then when they were writing the second record, the eponymous one, just called Collective Soul, or you could call it the Blue Album, I guess. No relation to Weezer's Blue Album. But yeah, it's got this, Gel's got the distinction of being the first song written for that record, which makes it the first song written by Collective Soul as we knew them. That version of Collective Soul, the first real version of it. So yeah, so it's a really catchy, kind of rocking tune, and it's just about coming together, as the Beatles said, just come together, despite the differences. Sounds like people are, men are wearing makeup and people are cross-dressing, and, we've got trans people out there and all sorts of different people, and I don't think it's even about, like, genders or sexual orientation. I think it's also about, like, fashion. Fashion's mentioned in the lyrics. Don't be afraid to dye your hair green and put it in a mohawk. Let's just all come together, which is a lyric, come together now, and let's gel. Get dressed up in glitter, and that's all very glam anyway. I mean, men were doing that in the 70s. So it's funny though, because Collective Soul aren't that kind of band at all. They weren't a glitter wearing band, a makeup wearing band. I don't think they hired a stylist till about 2000. You can tell in that Woodstock 99 video. I brought that up earlier. But yeah, they weren't really that type of band. But it doesn't matter, because Ed's just saying, hey, let's all come together now. Let's get along. People come together. And that's an age-old topic, but, it's life-affirming, it's positive. I'm not going to say it's been done to death, because the best topics live on, Peace and love should live on, and so should just, I guess, embracing all our differences. That's what I get out of Gel. The next track is Precious Declaration, which was off their Discipline Breakdown album, which, it did well, but it was kind of seen as sort of a disappointment commercially after the Blue record with The World I Know on it in December and all that. This one didn't sell quite as well in either the United States or Canada. I think the other one went about 3 times platinum or something in the States, and this one went platinum, which is nothing to scoff at, but that's like a third of the sales. Really, though, it's a great record. It's as good as, or in my opinion, a little better than the one before it. And it's a little bit darker, because Ed was dealing with a crooked manager, and a lot of the songs are actually about that. A lot of the songs, when you listen to them the first few times, they sound like breakup songs, and Ed had been through a bad relationship or a divorce or something like that. But it's more a divorce with his manager, not a literal divorce, but a parting. And there was this whole thing where where the band was like in exile, or they had to go record in a cabin or something, and I don't know what the story was, like if they couldn't use their name for a while, or there was some kind of controversy. They definitely got screwed, and I think they got screwed out of royalties and loyalties from their manager. But a lot of Ed's songs and his lyrics are about that, and stuff like Listen and A Crowded Head, and which is a great album cut, and this song are definitely about that, I think. Um, Especially the chorus "Precious Declaration" reads, "Yours is yours and mine you leave alone now." Like, that's all very literal. But yeah. Sorry, I'm just getting lost in the lyrics. So it's a great song with a great riff, great uh, melodic backing vocals. Um, it's just the band's calling card. Those nice, heavy riffs, but put into a digestible pop song because it's so much. There's so much harmony and so much kind of pop influence, I guess you could say. Um, and this song appeared on Big Shiny Tunes 3, or 2, 2, it's 2, which was this big compilation at the time in Canada. All the kids on the playground, got the new Big Shiny Tunes, and we're always talking about Big Shiny Tunes, so I remember it was on that one. It might have been the only time they got on that compilation series. Be interesting to know. Or it wouldn't be interesting. I would be interested, though. Then here comes the Gateway Drug song, Y Part 2. So this is the only one when I bought this CD set that, I now owned twice. This one has, like, one of the greatest riffs ever. The lyrics are a little more surreal than the band was used to doing, and that was kind of appreciated, too. I love the "Let My Silence Scream Tonight While You Roam Like a Serpent Satellite." That's really cool. But it was kind of that, it had the big heavy riff, and then that big soaring chorus. And I remember, I knew they were different than a lot of the rock bands I was listening to because my mom really liked this one. And she really liked all of Blender, but because she could sing along, I could kind of rock out, and she could sing along to Ed's choruses. And then I thought, oh yeah, they're a very melodic group. Um, but yeah, there's not much to say about this song except that it was really their last really really big hit. It seemed like songs like "Better Now" later on, they kind of took on a life of their own. But they didn't seem that big when they were released. And if you look at the charts, they weren't like that popular. It's just they lived on through, I guess, adult contemporary stations, soundtracks, commercials, people just picking up the song later or whatever. But yeah, this seemed like their last really huge smash. So, they put out a lot of big songs that became hits in a very short time, and then they kept going, but only the true fans followed. The commercial enterprise, the commercialism didn't follow them, per se. Kind of because of the end of rock radio and the end of rock music, I guess. Then we go on to the Soaring World I Know, which is a big statement. Music by Ed and Ross, so that's cool, because usually it's just Ed everything on most of these cuts. Lyrics, of course, by Ed. This is a song that just asks a lot of questions. I think it's about a man on the top of a building, or maybe he's on a cliff overlooking the city, and he's got a lot of questions. It's a very introspective song. Yeah, when it says "I walk up on high," I think in the music video he was on a building or a skyscraper or something. But I picture that, or maybe somewhere. It says New York City, but it could be any city really. Just Hollywood, like up in the hills and overlooking everything. Like it's a really good song too. It's a very accessible song. You don't have to be like a rock music fan to like this song. I think this is one of my think my girlfriend said December and Forgiveness were her two favorite Collective Soul songs, but she really likes this one and Run too. So it's kind of a song that non-rock people or rockists or whatever rock fans can get into. The whole, you know, the whole family can get into. But pop fans can get into it too. It's very accessible. The next song is Next Homecoming, which I briefly mentioned 25 minutes ago. Ooh, and yeah, this is a real rocker. I mean, listen to the delivery of Ed's vocals on the verses. It's just crazy. I love that. It's like this late 70s or early 80s, like really going for it rock group, and there's something explosive about the song, the performance, like the instrumentation. Like they were still really hungry back then, and I really love that sound. And I loved their last two records, Blood and See What You Started, but I kind of miss, you know, the hunger here and that driving force, and I really miss Shane's playing. Shane was amazing for this group. It's too bad he got fired for such a stupid reason, cocaine. A lot of groups, he wouldn't get fired for that. I always say to people, there's only two bands that would fire a member for doing coke, and that's Bare Naked Ladies and Collective Soul. You know, it's great that maybe they did it because they wanted him to get help. That would have been nice, but couldn't you do that without firing him? And also, like, I think they did it to protect their image, but what if you were the Rolling Stones? It's like, oh yeah, you did coke, like whatever. But yeah, I mean, that was a stupid reason for both parties to get fired, really. Don't do the hard drugs, kids. Yeah, but to this day, I still really miss Shane in the group. I think that they've kind of reached out to him. I think he performed live with one of them or all of them, like one time, like a one-off or something. I remember reading something about that. Ed would never reach out to Ross ever again, but I think they didn't completely leave Shane behind. Yeah, so anyway, Next Homecoming is like just 5 out of 5 stars, awesome track. And then we go into Listen, which is another song from Discipline Breakdown. And it's one of the lightest sounding tunes on the compilation. It's got a great kind of groovy bass playing. Yeah, it's a really good song. It again has this very kind of prophetic lyricism to it. Yeah, just they definitely had a different outlook than a lot of rock groups at the time, and it shows here. It did have a music video. I think it got some airplay. I don't remember it being quite as big of a hit as a lot of these other tunes, but I'm glad it made it on here because there are some glaring omissions to this set, considering there's 13 tracks on it. I don't think it fills the disc. They probably could have put a few more on there. So that song just has a great groove to it, and usually when they perform it live, it has a little bit of a harder edge to it, but I don't think it gets performed live that often, especially compared to a lot of other songs on here. And then we go to December, which, you know, Shine is like, it seems like their biggest hit, but this one also does, for other reasons. Shine because of chart positions and sales and all that, and it did get a lot of airplay, but this one did too. This one's on the level comparatively for hits, I guess, and yeah, you still hear this song out and about. Everyone in the audience always knows it. It's got a really great guitar riff, kind of like a descending guitar riff to it. It almost reminds me of like a slowed down Everlong by Foo Fighters. Though this was written and recorded in 96, or 95 or 96. It says copyright 96, but I think they were recording it in 95. Anyway, But yeah, it kind of reminds me of kind of a slower Everlong, which wouldn't come out till a year later, but by the Foo Fighters. Um, Why drink the water from my hand, contagious as you think I am? Uh, your cup runneth over again. Yeah, the whole, sending off the lines, don't scream about, don't think aloud, turn your head, no baby, just spit me out. Don't worry about, don't speak of doubt. That's the part that kind of brings everyone together at the live show. And yeah, it's a great song. I don't care that it was overplayed or that it's kind of the most well-known collective soul song. Like, it still lives on because of quality. It's an amazing, amazing track. And if I was Ed or the band, I would be so happy that I wrote it and that people appreciate it and sing along to it. And just the fact that something so patient, like, was a hit, that's a testament to their fame at the time and their talents. And I think they should be really proud of that, because something this patient wouldn't get played anymore, really. Especially on alternative radio, because it's all 21 Pilots and Imagine Dragons and stuff like that. I'm not really hating on those groups, but alternative is definitely different than it used to be. But in fact, I really do like a 21 Pilot song, so the hype, I never thought I'd say that till the hype came out, and then I'm like, wow, I really like this. That's why I always have an open mind. You never know what you're going to latch onto, or what your heart's going to run with. Yeah, I wish December wasn't so long in the track list, because if it was where Heavy was, I would be talking about it more, but just know this, that it's an amazing, amazing accomplishment. It's an amazing track. It doesn't matter if, like, every time they perform live they do it. It's still gonna be a great track. So, and then this was a really good decision in sequencing, but Forgiveness is the last song, and yeah, a great last track to put on a record. Forgiveness is, I think it's the only song other than Energy and Next Homecoming, the two bonus tracks. I think it was the only one that wasn't like a big hit. It's like they just were proud of it and put it on. Like, I don't even know if it was a single, to be honest with you. Here Comes the Cat. Let's watch what he's doing. He's gonna go for the records. Ow. Again, it plays into that whole the whole concept that discipline breakdown is. Yeah, washing away stains of yesterday, like, that really tells us all right there. Tempt my heart with love's display. It's a really tender track, really important. You know, it's kind of about, like, because of situations like that, like the legal troubles they had so early on, and the troubles with their manager, troubles Ed had, you know, your first instinct as a human is to get angry, but it's kind of about, you know, washing away that and kind of, you know, looking at the situation again and, you know, with a different perspective, with your heart more. Forgiving's a tough thing, and You know, when I was younger, I would give people the benefit of the doubt, but if someone did me wrong, like, I would really hold a grudge. And as I grew older, like, yeah, forgiveness is really important, and I think this song conveys that really nicely. I think it's a really important song. It's important for the group too. This would be a nice one to hear live, actually. I've seen them live 4 times, but yeah, they never brought that one out. It wouldn't really get things cooking because it's really a tender song, but that's okay. I mean, they always play a few soft ones in the set list. I just think it was a really inspired choice to sequence it at the end of the disc, or to put it on the disc at all, because, like I said, I can't see any record of it being released as a single anywhere. So that makes it more of a personal best of than a greatest hits to put it on, but that's okay. So it's interesting that was on the record, and Breathe didn't make it. That was a single. It had a video. They performed it on, I think, Conan, way back in the day. I think that was their network television debut. Smashing Young Man also doesn't make an appearance, which was a song that Ed wrote about Billy Corgan when Billy dissed their group. It was kind of his rebuttal. It wasn't like a big FU or whatever. It was kind of like, it's an interesting song. I mean, yeah. Oh, speaking of the bitter Billy Corgan himself. So yeah, those two aren't on, and then I feel like, well, Vent didn't make it on. That's one of my favorite Collective Soul singles. But it wasn't a very big hit, so it couldn't go with the big boys, I guess. And Perfect Day didn't make it, and I feel like something from Dosage didn't make it. There's a few omissions. It definitely would be nice to have Breathe on there as another, one more showing from Hints. They only had one showing from Hints on the record. But yeah, when this came out, I was expecting an 08 or 09 a 7-year itch too, but the hits didn't continue. It wouldn't have made a lot of sense, and they didn't really put out records in a quite the same pace anymore. So it's a nice snapshot of a very short period with, a 7-year period with so much stuff in it. Like, recording 5 albums in 7 years, 6 really, because Splendor came out in 2000. The 7 is because of the 01 material on here, I guess. Or no, it would be 93 to, no, it's 94 to 2001. I'm getting confused. Yeah, but they put out a lot of stuff in a short time. They put out 5 records then. They're on record number 10 now. It's taken 19 years to put out the next 5. So the pacing has really dropped off, but they're not as young anymore. They all have solo projects for the most part. Will's done some stuff. Ed's done his thing. He's done the Sweet Tea project, which is very different than Collective Soul. Don't expect the same thing, but really some cool stuff from them. Will did his Serengeti stuff. And then some of the other boys have done some stuff too. Ross pops up every once in a while, but he hasn't really done that much of a note. And yeah, like I kind of hinted at, the group disintegrated right after this. I mean, the classic 5 guys, because Ross was fired. Shane was for infidelity. Shane was kicked out for cocaine habits. And it took the group a while to recover. Like, Youth was put out with very little live drumming on it, so there was a big absence of Shane. And even though Ed always wrote the guitar parts, like, the guitar on it is not as prominent or as memorable. And yeah, a lot of tracks have a lot of like scaled back guitars, and the big part of Collective Soul for me was the guitar playing to go with the vocal, the melodies. Um, so for me, my fandom kind of tapered out for a little while. After this, I still I was collecting the old records, but I wasn't listening to the new ones as much. Youth never did it for me. It's got a two or three songs which I think are pretty good, but they're not great. And the one song that really came out of that was Better Now, which is a joy to hear live. The studio version's pretty good though. And then afterwards came out. Their new guitarist was official by then. He even wrote a song on it, which was the only other time that a group member wrote and sang a song that wasn't Ed. That only happened on Dosage with Ross's song Dandy Life. So that came out, and I wasn't a huge fan of it at the time. But looking back on it now, it's a decent recording. At the time, I liked it even less than Youth. So after listening to it like twice, I shelved it. I never really listened to it again. Going back to it now, I actually quite like it. Not as much as the classic 5 stuff, but more, and not as much as Rabbit, but more than Youth. So it still has its place in their discography. And then once '09 came around, my fandom really, I started, listening to them more again and seeking them out a bit more, because I heard Welcome All Again on the radio while camping, oddly enough. We were listening to one of the radio stations here, the Q. We would often put that on while camping. And yeah, Welcome All Again came on, and it kind of sounded like the old stuff. Like it sounded like Dosage or something. And I mean, the name is Welcome All Again, but it was like, whoa, like the group was only gone for 2 years, but it really was welcome back. It sounded like they were more reinvigorated again or something. And yeah, that's when things started happening again, and I started kind of going back into the group again. So that was a good feeling, and Rabbit was my favorite since Blender. I thought that one was really good, so maybe I'll do a review on that one someday. And even though the releases have been very slow since then, it's kind of like they've been on this upward climb again, and that really warms my heart. Like the stuff from Rabbit onwards, I've liked it all a lot, and I always enjoy hearing Ed's voice, backing all those rock tracks. I enjoy his writing, and when I was young, I didn't get to take in any live performances, and I started taking live performances in like '07 or so, and but I didn't get to see Collective Soul till I think it was about 20. I'd have to look this up, but I think it was about 2011 or 2012. And the first time I saw them, like, I just felt so good, and I felt so nostalgic, and it was so good to see them after all this time, and after being a fan for all this time. And every time since, I've had the same feeling, especially when I saw them. I was about 3 or 4 rows deep. I saw them in Victoria at the Save-On Memorial Center, and that was my favorite time of seeing them, because oftentimes we would see them at music festivals and that, but this time they had a little more time to play like a full set and that. And the sound was so good, and we were so close. They opened with Burn. All the factors were there. Yeah, so anyway, that's the end of the story, but I might review some more Collective Soul stuff. And yeah, just almost nothing but good things to say about the group. they're very different than a lot of the stuff I listen to, and a lot of people are surprised that I am a Collective Soul fan. I count myself as one. And when I say I'm going to their live show, a lot of people go, "Oh, you like that group?" Because a lot of people know me for other things, I guess. But they'll always be a big part of me, and I'll always enjoy seeing them and hearing them. And watching Ed live is so fun, and the other guys. Um, but back to the review at hand, because now I'm doing an overview of the entire career, or my fandom of their career. 7-Year Itch. Not everything's on there, but as far as greatest hits goes, it's it's a really solid one. You know, they packed some quality stuff into those 13 tracks there, and yeah, it's a great gateway. And like, if you don't have any of their stuff, it's a good one to start with to kind of know where they were coming from and that. So I definitely recommend it. And then, yeah, if you like it, just kind of make your way backwards or go out any direction. You know, if you are listening to this and you don't really know them, which I'd be very surprised if that were the case, you know, I would get this, and then I would go and buy Dosage, or the eponymous record, just called Collective Soul, from the mid-90s. Get one of those two, and then if you have that and one of those or both of those, and you like all that, then start collecting the rest. But you know, you kind of got to start with the right one, I guess, which comes down to personal preference. But both Dosage and the eponymous are kind of the most accessible, in my opinion. You know, I love Discipline Breakdown and Blender, but that doesn't mean everyone's gonna love them right off the bat. So yeah, definitely start there, and hopefully one day I'll do Rabbit, or maybe I'll do one of the other ones, or maybe next time I see them live, which I hope I do, and I hope it's soon. But I could do like a live review or something, because they are really good live. You know, the guys are getting older, but there's so much energy, and a live show from them is definitely worth taking in. And it's awesome that they can still do it. Their commercial heyday is definitely over, but all those old fans and new fans can go out and see them, and they continue their career by just almost non-stop tours, and just quality live shows. So this has been my long-winded review of 7-Year Itch, and also talking about their career before and after, and my thoughts on them and that. Yeah, despite what else I listen to or what else you listen to, I think there's always time for Collective Soul, and great riffs with great pop songwriting. And yeah, I have much love for these guys, and yeah, I ride for these guys. It's ride or die with this group, and thanks for checking this out. Catch you on the next one.